Hello everyone, today we're back on the Updates 1.79 dev server, and it's time to have a look at a new, Soviet attacker, I suppose you'd call it. They call it a jet bomber, but this is an attacker version of said bomber. This is the IL-28Sh, and you will find it after the IL-28 right here. It is at the same BR right now, even though it has some significant upgrades. And what are those significant upgrades, you may ask? Well, it's pretty much all of these secondary weapons. You have 8 250s, 10 250s, 4 500s, a 1500, a 3000, and then we get into the interesting stuff. 4 23mm GSH-23-2s, then you get 6 S-24 rockets, and then 192 S5K rockets. Now, I apologize for getting that wrong so many times and calling it the SSKs. I now see it as the S5Ks. 150 millimeters of penetration at 0 degrees, 129 at 30, and then 60 at 74 millimeters at 60 degrees. So, decent, penetration. These are pretty much just AP rockets, though. Not a lot of explosive mass behind them, 0.29 of a kilo, with 344 grams of TNT equivalent. If you compare it to these lads have 25 kilos of TNT equivalent. Now, how is this supported on a machine like this? Well, actually pretty well. The two massive jet engines, once you have it fully upgraded, are able to hold their own when even taking 192 rockets with 3 kilos each. So what's that? It's around about 600 kilos, isn't it, of rockets, which is insane. Now also, when I was doing the Fritz X video, hopefully, I'm not sure when this comes out, if this comes out after or before, well, I'll go through it again. There is a fire rocket salvo button now, when there wasn't one before. And you can set a control to it, so I thought, okay, let's give it a go. So let's go into test drive and show you what actually happens with it. Basically, you know how when you hit your rocket button, you have to smash it a bunch of times in order to fire more than one set of however many rockets the machine wants to fire? So this is me holding down my normal rocket button. You see how it follows the rockets, and it only shoots the amount that it wants to shoot. Well, here is me holding down the salvo button. So as you can see, the salvo button is designed just to fire all of your rockets at once while holding down the button. Now, at that time, you can stop whenever you want. So let's say I only want to fire, 50 rockets. I can just take my hand off the button, and therefore all of those rockets have gone, and everything else is still in the plane. So overall, with this said, you can fire as many rockets as you want, instead of just firing 2 at the same time for the IL-28 or 1 with something else. This just makes it easier for you to fire a ton of rockets instead of having to smash that button and break a keyboard. So that's nice, especially now that we have a ton of machines in game which do have a ridiculous amount of rockets attached to them. Now, a lot of people have been pointing out the extra 23mm that we have on the IL-28Sh and how useful they are, or how useful they will be. For me personally, when I have a look at these, they have exactly the same belt as the offensive 23mm. All of these belts are completely fine, they're all great, there isn't really one which I would say stands out over the other. But with these 4 23mm on the wings here, what this basically means is instead of only having 200 rounds of ammunition, you put yourself up to 700. Now the GSHs do have more of a kick to them. What I mean by that is the muzzle velocity is higher, and also the fire rate I also believe is higher, which we'll have a look here. And that means that they'll be used for aircraft killing capabilities. Now I don't know whether this thing will get an air spawn or not. My guess is that it will, so let's have a look. You can see that the ones on the wings have a much higher fire rate than the ones in the center, and you can kind of tell that by looking at the ammunition count, right? It actually made it so we finished the outer ones before the inner ones, showing how high the fire rate is over the originals. What this means though, oh, they've added them in. Wonderful stuff. one of the issues with the IL-28Sh was that it didn't have the rocket boosters. Look who's back in business. It's the rocket boosters, and for some... Oh, it's because I have different controls. Well, yeah, the rocket boosters are there for the assisted takeoff, which is wonderful. So, if we get through 200 rounds of the cannons in the center, we get through 500 rounds of the outer cannons, which is, 4 cannons over 2, so that's, what, 150 rounds to 100. So, overall, it has... well, wait a second. 4 divided by 500... We're looking at 125 per gun, where the other one's at 100, so it does have a higher fire rate, but it's not a crazy amount over. What the main thing is, you fire about 500 rounds out of the 4 guns, compared to the 200 rounds of the 2 guns in the center. Overall, giving you a ton of firepower. You don't have to worry too much about convergence, especially against jets. Just leave a spread of 23 over the air, and you'll be able to annihilate whatever's in front of you. For me personally, though, where this is going to be useful is ground realistic. If these rockets do a lot of damage, one of the issues that I ran into when I was testing it last dev server with Bad Mofo and also Dog for Life is the issue that I was shooting the Abrams with them. I couldn't get the targeting correct for a while, and then once I started doing it, all we really did was knock out breaches and set people on fire, which overall is not that useful in the grand scheme of things. So what instead I would like to see now is doing a little bit more modular damage for these things in ground realistic. In air realistic, though, this thing is going to be a monster, just like the FJ4B is, and it's going to force 8.0 jets to be even more lower to the ground and faster. Oh, they actually put in the turret as well. So this thing also has the 23mm turrets that you see on the normal IL-28. As I said, this is just an IL-28. It also has the same crew compartment, which is wonderful to see. They are both great in their own entireties. But yeah, in air realistic, one of the issues is the damage models of AI, like little forces or medium tanks, heavy tanks, like pillboxes, haven't been changed in an incredibly long time in a significant way. And what this means is it is going to be incredibly easy to knock out swathes upon swathes of AI unless they make a difference to how it works. This thing does not have an air brake, even though it is a jet, so you do have to take that into account. Also, it does not have any war emergency power or 110%. It can go up to around about 850 to 900 if you push it hard, which you can do, as you've seen. And, whoa, don't want to knock out the pilots. We should probably reduce the speed. Good night. And part of our wing fell off, but we killed it with absolute certainty. And what I want to just make sure, I love it how I didn't die there because it went into the cutscene. That is something as well that you may want to get used to. But yeah, this thing, 860 is about the cutoff, but the reason it zooms out or targets something is because I have that set to this button as well, to my shift key. So if I target something else, it struggles a little bit, but there we go. So since vehicle is targeted, it will look at that while I shoot my rockets, but understand that isn't part of the macro for the rockets. It is nice that we have this functionality in game right now. It's going to benefit the FJ4B, the IL-28Sh and the F4U7, and also the AD4 and many other aircraft that have been added before. The main worry, as you can see, the rockets fly extremely straight as well, by the way. The main worry I have with these aircraft is how deadly they're going to be in air realistic. I'm not too bothered about ground realistic, just because of the fact that I just don't think they're going to do enough damage. But in air realistic, if somebody gets really good at accurately targeting these, and yes, with the convergence of the rockets and also with the fact that they fly a bit different to others, yes, that's going to take time to do, but people will master it, just like they mastered the Hortons, just like they mastered the DO335s, just how even people master the seafaring Mosquito, and how that is able to annihilate targets as it goes along. All of these things have to be taken into account, just like the amount of rockets this has and the amount of ground targets it can take out in Aerialistic. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.